Right, joining us now to discuss is Benoit Bosc. He's the global head of product at crypto trading firm GSR Markets. Benoit, thanks for joining us this afternoon. So Bitcoin broke $16,000 support yesterday, and now we're seeing a reversal of some of those losses amid a bullish CPI report that showed inflation easing at 0.4% in October. What do you think is driving Bitcoin right now?
No, you said it exactly. The US inflation is slightly for the last months. Although we come out of 4 consecutive raises by the Fed, and it will continue raising rates. The CPI reading this morning was at 7.7%, well below, slightly below, actually, the 7.9% that a lot of market participants were expecting. This is clearly still very elevated, but softer than expected, meaning there's a slightly better trend, better direction for inflation. Maybe it's cooling off a little bit. And as a result, we saw a pretty sharp rally in stock prices, pretty sharp fall in treasury yield with the 2-year rate that is a clear indicator at 4.4%. But I think markets are still maybe a bit optimistic. We should remain very, very cautious as the outright number is still pretty high and the Fed will continue to increase. But to your point, what does it mean for crypto? It means like a little bit of a relief rally, although crypto has been caught in its own narrative, and Bitcoin rallied back above $17,500, now slightly lower, but really, again, like a little bit of a short squeeze and relief rally on the CPI number.
Mm-hmm. And what about this fallout from FTX? Will it continue to put pressure on Bitcoin in the coming weeks, in your view?
Yes, certainly. And the last time I was on the show, I was speaking about how there were green shoots throughout the ecosystem in other layer ones and even in the DeFi environment and NFT ecosystem. I think all of that has basically turned south following the Binance FTX drama, really more just the ongoing FTX drama at this point. And will take time to recover, especially as we ponder the ramification, the contagion impact of FTX going down. We now have millions of users stranded with their money locked on the exchange, with their assets locked on the exchange, with very little chance of recovery. We saw some locked accounts try to trade for somewhere between 10 to 30% of value. Obviously, something happening very sporadically and very little happening there. But overall, a lot of worry, a lot of fear, FUD happening in the market, lots of rumors about who's going to be next, who's in a weak position.
Right. So there's no central bank to bail out FTX, unlike in the traditional financial system. So, who, if anyone, can help or save FTX? And if not, who will be next in this contagion risk that will fall out? FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, was supposed to be the JP Morgan of crypto, buying up and bailing out Voyager, BlockFi, and whatnot. Now what happens to them and, the investors of FTX if they do end up having to go through bankruptcy proceedings?
Absolutely. I think the market, again, is very concerned about what's happening and what's the state of reserve of many actors, be it trading houses, be it other exchanges, and some of the investors, some of the VC funds and others that had participated in the FTX round. The FTX rose about $1.8 billion at 25 to 30 plus $billion valuations throughout 2021. Those investors are obviously very exposed in case of bankruptcy. They're unlikely to recover much, if anything at all. I think it's become pretty obvious that SBF went from that JP Morgan image to now something a lot worse. And his arc from hero to villain has been pretty fast and staggering, I would say. Most of the industry wasn't ready for it, wasn't necessarily anticipated the kind of action that are now and allegations that are now being levied against him. Mm-hmm. As to who could save I think most exchanges or large market participants by now have had a look or the chance to think about it, and we're not seeing a lot of takers.
Right. And it's interesting, some of FTX's investors, such as Sequoia Capital, are saying that they've essentially written off their investment as zero. Sequoia invested about $150 million in the FTX empire, but on their balance sheet, at least they say it's insignificant. Given the freeze on withdrawals at FTX, I'm hearing some investors are going long on FTX and short on Binance or other exchanges in the hopes of liquidating themselves out of FTX and making gains elsewhere. Is that a viable strategy?
Not really. Because as you do that, for instance, you're exposed to exactly what's happening right now, the market rallying, and you're like the money-making side of your trade being on FTX, where you might not be able to recover. So it's a very risky strategy and also a pretty crowded trade. We saw a lot of people pile into the trade yesterday, which made the perpetual rates move in opposite direction on both exchanges and made the trade more expensive to carry. And we're now seeing moves that are going to make it difficult for some people to remain in those positions.
All right, Benoit, before we leave here, where do you see Bitcoin's bottom given all this new development happening in the crypto industry?
I suspect there will still be some pressure as we ponder what the exact, again, contagion risks are and who are the affected parties. What happens to BlockFi? What happens to Voyager? What happens to some of the other entities where FTX had interest? Once we figure all of that out, will be an easier path forward, and will be more correlated again to risk asset before potentially decoupling.
What's the new support level, Benoit?
Yeah, it looks like it's mostly around like 15,000. Right. I don't know if you saw, there was a tweet by Arthur Hayes about where the OG crypto investor, crypto diamond hands are looking to accumulate. It's between 10 and 15 in Bitcoin, and somewhere below 1,000 for Ethereum.